You've seen them, right? Orchids. And if you've ever owned one or even just looked closely at one in a store, you've probably noticed something kind of weird. They almost always come in these clear plastic pots. Now you might just assume, oh, that's so you can see when to water it, or maybe it's just for looks, but the real reason is so much more fascinating, and it goes back millions of years.
And yeah, it seems like such a simple question, right? But it unlocks this incredible story about escaping the dark, about completely redesigning what a root is even supposed to do. And understanding that story, that history, is the absolute key to keeping these amazing plants alive and happy in our homes.
This right here just perfectly shows how orchids totally flip the script on everything you were taught in high school biology. We learned that roots are supposed to anchor a plant and drink up water, that they live underground, away from the light. But for an epiphytic orchid, well, the root is a whole different beast. Sure, it's an anchor, but it's also a solar panel. It actively seeks out light and air. And it doesn't just consume energy, it actually produces it. So how on earth did that happen?
To really get the luminous root, we have to go back, way back. We have to understand why the orchid left the ground in the first place. This was a massive evolutionary migration, a journey from the soil all the way up into the sky.
I want you to just picture the floor of a dense tropical rainforest. It's a place of what some scientists call biological desperation. Down there, the competition for sunlight is just brutal. Only about 1 to 2% of the light that hits the top of the canopy ever makes it to the ground. For a plant, that is basically a death sentence.
So what do? Well, in this incredible evolutionary masterstroke, orchids took to the trees. They became what we call epiphytes, which are basically plants that grow on other plants. They're not parasites, they're not harming the tree, they're just using it like a ladder to get to the one thing they desperately need to survive: sunlight. But, okay, this created a huge new problem. What in the world do you do with your roots when you're living in midair?
And this, my friends, is where the magic really happens. To survive way up in the canopy, the orchid root had to go through a complete, radical redesign. It had to become something entirely new.
This redesign has a pretty cool, kind of technical name, the velamen radicum. Sounds complicated, I know, but just think of it as a special, spongy sleeve made of dead cells that covers the real living root inside. When it's dry, it looks all silvery white and it acts like a shield against the harsh sun, but it's also like a sponge, just ready to soak up any tiny bit of moisture in the air.
Okay, but here's the really cool part. The velamen has a secret trick. The second it gets wet, that silvery shield instantly becomes almost perfectly transparent. It's like a magic trick. And this reveals the living core of the root underneath, which, as you can see, is bright green because it is packed with chlorophyll. Yep, the exact same stuff that makes leaves green.
So, what does this all mean? Here's the big takeaway. Orchid roots can photosynthesize. They can literally take in sunlight and carbon dioxide and create their own food, just like leaves do. I mean, for some leafless species of orchid, their roots do all the work. For the ones we keep in our homes, the roots provide a huge energy boost that's absolutely vital for their survival and for getting them to bloom.
And this quote just puts it all into perspective, doesn't it? Putting an orchid in a regular, dark pot is like blindfolding its backup power source. You're taking this creature that evolved for a life drenched in light up in the canopy, and you're locking its most important adaptation away in a dark cave.
Okay, so that's the ancient evolutionary science. But what does this mean for you and me, in our living rooms? Well, that clear pot on your windowsill is basically your attempt to replicate their natural home in the canopy.
And because of that, the clear pot gives us a kind of superpower. We can use it as a health indicator. This table is your cheat sheet. If you look and the roots are silvery or white, you know the velamen is dry and it's time to water. If they're a vibrant, bright green, your plant is happy, it's hydrated, and it's actively making energy. But if you start seeing brown or black roots, that's a sign they're dead, probably from too much water and not enough oxygen. The clear pot lets you spot a problem way before the leaves even start to droop.
But believe it or not, it's not just about the light. Remember, these roots evolved to dangle in the open air, not to be smothered in dense, wet soil. So a clear plastic pot also promotes better airflow and oxygen exchange. The light gently warms the roots, which boosts their metabolism. And it even lets that dappled ambient light reach the roots in the middle of the pot, just like how light would filter through the branches of a tree.
So when you boil it all down, what's the big takeaway here? This whole story is really a lesson in what you might call biological empathy. It's about looking at an organism and really trying to understand the world from its perspective.
You know, when we use a clear pot, we're doing so much more than just following a gardening rule. We are honoring the millions of years of evolution this plant went through just to survive. Depriving its roots of light isn't just cutting off an energy source. You're ignoring the very history that defines what an orchid is.
And I think this final quote just sums it up beautifully. That simple, clear plastic container is a window into a whole other world. It's the bridge that allows these incredible queens of the forest to thrive in our homes, an environment so totally different from the one they were born for. It's our way of giving them just a little piece of the canopy right there on the windowsill.
So, the next time you see a plant doing something you don't expect, like an orchid with green roots that crave the light, it's worth stopping and asking why. It might just be a clue, a secret message from its evolutionary past, just waiting for you to figure it out. What other weird plant behaviors are out there, just waiting to tell us their story?